So it looks like we've gotten the signal to get started. Can everybody hear me well? Great. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this online Gender and Science Meet that is being hosted jointly by the Alba Network and the Heidelberg Pain Consortium. My name is Rohini. I lead the Heidelberg Pain Consortium, and I'll be moderating today's webinar together with Professor Carmen Sandi, who leads the Alba Network. Helping us massively in this task are Dr. Pooja Gupta from the Heidelberg Pain Consortium and Matilda Maugan from the Alba Network. Thank you, Pooja and Matilda. We're very excited that you have joined this webinar in such large numbers today from all parts of the world. The registrants span more than 55 countries, which we take to be an indication that today's topic, "Do I have to act like a man to succeed in science?" has really touched a nerve all around. I also warmly welcome the outstanding panel of international scientists that we are very fortunate to be able to recruit for discussing this important topic. Now, I'd like to start by begin by outlining the goals of this webinar and giving a very brief overview on the schedule and the format so that we all know that we're all on the same page and what to expect. And let me emphasize from the beginning that all panelists are absolutely dedicated to making this webinar as informative, useful, and interactive for all participants as possible. Now, coming to the goals of the webinar first. Fortunately, there has been increasing awareness to enhance gender equality in science over recent times. But you know that female scientists still remain underrepresented in leadership positions. To counter this leakage, for a long time, female scientists have been told to develop assertive, typically male-like characteristics to hide their femininity, which is perceived to be soft, meaning if you translate that to weak, and to redefine their nature and toughen up, leading to insecurity and perhaps a feeling of not belonging in science in some of us. Now, in this panel discussion, we have therefore invited leading female scientists from both basic neurosciences as well as clinical sciences to share their stories and views with us. And what we hope to achieve is to reach some sort of understanding of how a diversity of behavioral, social, and leadership styles can be harnessed to create a professionally balanced and productive environment, and of course, personally to achieve success in science. Now, a few practical points. We'll begin with a round of introductions and opening statements from all the panelists, followed by a round of 3 questions that the moderators have already planned. Thereafter, the moderators would like to take up plenty of questions from the audience. So please go ahead and share your questions with us by writing them in the Q&A section of this Zoom webinar. You'll find the link at the bottom right of your screen. Your questions will be handled anonymously unless you choose to introduce yourself in your question in writing. And although this webinar is being recorded, I can assure you that one can go back and edit parts if someone is uncomfortable with any given part. So please don't hold back and please don't be shy. To make the webinar more interactive and to get a better idea of the nature and experiences of all participants, we have designed 6 polls, basically 6 questions that will be intermittently displayed on the screen. And everybody is invited to answer the poll questions quickly. You actually only require a few seconds and we'll get to see the results right away. But do let us know if the Q&A area, if the poll is going a little bit too fast for you. So with this, I now, let's get started. Matilda, would you like to please project the first 2 poll questions? So we have quite a few participants who identify with the female gender, but also a few with the male gender. So welcome to everybody, and non-binary as well as prefer not to say. Excellent. There's one more poll question that we'll be running before the introductions. Wow, great. So we have about 50% graduate students with us. That's excellent. And also a sizable number of postdoctoral fellows, group leaders, and professors. Thank you very much for joining. That gives us an excellent idea of whom we are talking to. And with that, I now pass on to Professor Carmen Sandi for giving her opening statement.
Thank you so much, Rohini, and hello, welcome everyone. It's Great to be here today. I saw that somebody in the Q&A was asking how many participants had joined already, and we are above 250. In total, around 500 people registered, so maybe there will be new people joining. And yeah, I start with pleasure this round of introductions. And I would like to say we are going to introduce ourselves because we don't have any title close to our names, but this doesn't mean that we don't have titles. And I think for this type of seminar, it's important as role models that we say what we are doing and who we are. So I'm Carmen Sandi. I'm professor of neuroscience at the EPFL, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, where I directed the Brain Mind Institute for 7 years until 2018, when I joined the FENS as president of the Federation of European Neuroscience Societies, for which I'm currently the immediate past president. I'm also immediate past president of the Cajal training program for neuroscience enhanced training. And also I am currently the co-president and the founder of the Swiss Stress Network, also co-director of the Swiss National Center of Competence in Research that's called SYNAPSI. And also I am the chair of the Alba Network, as Rohini indicated. So I now will address, as all my colleagues here are going to do, the question of whether or not we need to behave as a man in order to succeed in science, and to reflect a little bit. And since I am the first speaker of this panel, I thought that perhaps we could go a little bit back to reflecting on the traits. And indeed, we are talking about traits and predispositions, and sometimes also states, attitudes that one has when addressing different types of issues in science. And the traits that have been seen that are more associated with scientists and also that are rewarded in science normally are being assertive, also maybe ambitious, and also competitive, also goal and task directed, etc. And these normally are what we normally perceive as more male type of characteristics, even though I have to say, luckily things are changing. And I think we are part of this change that's happening at the moment. But this is what we have to discuss here. And the other traits that we consider more maybe feminine are being empathetic and maybe also more integrative, more group and relationship directed, etc. So these are other type of traits, and the question is whether or not we have a trade-off between one traits or the other traits. So of course we wouldn't be discussing this if there was not an issue with the representation of women in science. Even if it's improving, this is something that it's still far from being ideal at many different levels. We are incorporating more women, more talent, but still we are far from doing so in all the countries, and certainly doing so in positions of leadership. So it's something that is important to reflect and how to reach it, how to behave in order to be able to get there. So if I think of my own experience, whether or not one has to sacrifice some of the traits, etc., I really think that being assertive is important. So I think it's something I would recommend all the young women to work in, but sometimes it's difficult. So I've also been several times, particularly at the beginning when I started being part of committees, a bit intimidated because particularly in Switzerland is a country where there's been a male-dominated community, particularly neuroscience. So when I started being incorporated in many of these committees, I was many times the only woman. And it was difficult sometimes to oppose some of the positions that some of my colleagues were having. And sometimes there was even tension when I tried to maybe counteract some drastic positions. And what to do there? Do we need to be like our colleagues, maybe fighting and being extremely assertive? Sometimes it's difficult, and maybe it's not the way we feel like it. It happened to me. And what one way that I found that works very well for me is to afterwards come back to people because I didn't feel I needed to be fighting and being not myself. But afterwards, if a decision was not reached, or even if it was possible to to counteract the decision, I came back to my colleagues and I expressed myself. And I think this is something that has worked well. So I think it might be maybe a tip for other people. Of course, it's better to be assertive and to be able to do this eventually without confrontation and expressing oneself, but not everything is lost from my point of view. Another, I think, important aspect that I experienced is that it's important to realize that all the context and people are not the same. So sometimes I had successful attitudes that were perhaps stronger and maybe demanding in some of my colleagues, lab members, etc., not so effective with other colleagues. So I think this taught me that it's very important to be capable of exerting some flexibility and so on. And maybe one final tip and comment here that I think it has characterized a little bit my trajectory and career is the ability of not giving up, of enduring, having perseverance. Many times we encounter situations in which perhaps the dean tell us, yeah, you are still not up for promotion. Maybe your field is different to mine, but it doesn't feel that maybe, yeah, you already have the track to go for promotion, when maybe it's not what we feel at all. And I think it's important to develop this self-confidence somehow that comes with time, but to believe in yourself and to endure and to insist somehow. For me, it worked well in many occasions, just to say, no, I think we should go for this, etc. And once, even I was remembering that in Spain, I even took into court a case that was very unfair because there was corruption in the system. It's very different to what we are more used in other European countries. But to believe in yourself, maybe develop this confidence, be passionate of your science and focus on that. And afterwards, just go for it. And I think, I don't know if this is being a male attitude, but I don't think so. It doesn't need to be too fighting, but just believe in yourself and go for it. And that's all I want to say now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. I'm sure you'll answer also more questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask then Carmen Ruiz, the Almodovar, to join in now.
Thank you, Rohini. So thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm very happy to be joining this session. And so my name is Carmen Ruiz Almodovar, and I'm a professor for vascular dysfunction at the European Center for Angioscience in Heidelberg University. But I actually originally come from Spain, from a city called Granada. And this is where I studied my university degree in biochemistry, and where I also did my PhD in molecular biology. And then I follow, mainly in my career, I follow the classical steps of an academia research career. So after my PhD, I moved to Belgium. I did my postdoc in Belgium. And then I came to Germany, where I started my independent research group as a junior group leader at the Biochemistry Center. And it is since 2 years ago that I took the position of a professor. My research is such, the group of people that we work together, we are interested in understanding neurovascular communication in the central nervous system. And we are very happy and proud that we actually got funded by the European Research Council with a starting grant and now a consolidator grant. And this is great for our research. And I do not think that I have acted as a man to achieve my goals, but what I think is I share very much what Carmen said. I really think that each of us need to find our own way within our personality to be confident and to believe in ourselves and to show determination for what we want to achieve our own goals. So this is what I'm looking forward to discuss with all of you later today, and I'm looking forward to hear the other panelists also. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Carmen. And let's move on to Professor Monyer.
Yeah, thank you, Rohini, for inviting me. My name is Hannah Monyer. I'm a professor at Heidelberg University and at the DKFZ, the Cancer Research Institute. I was born in Romania, and actually before joining this meeting, I jotted down the essential steps in my career, and I just realized how much it differed from my written CV if I just try to remember what were the decisive steps in my life. And I actually think I was already as a child very determined in pursuing what was important to me. With 6, I came home and I told my dad that I want to play the piano. With 14, I left home and I went to one of the 2 English-speaking schools in this socialist country where I stayed in a boarding house. Very much, I don't want to say against the will of my parents, but this is not what they actually had envisaged. And with 17 and a half, I escaped from this country without anyone knowing it and came to Germany, where I cleaned the floors and the kitchen in a hotel until I came of age at 18 and I could register, finish my college and study. I wanted to do medicine. This is what I studied indeed. And I was an active physician in psychiatry. And what I learned there, but probably also my personal interest, are such that when I am opposite to somebody, I do feel the vibes. That is something very, I do think that the intuition plays a very important role. I really feel whether somebody likes me or not. I feel where that person stands. That is a great forte, but it's also a hindrance in my own lab because I really feel it when the atmosphere is not all right, and I can't tolerate it when it's not all right. So when I was young, as a young group leader, that was one of my major problems I had in my own lab, that this liking and not liking between the lab members was something that I did not feel comfortable. So I tried to compensate with knowledge. And so Rohini, before told me I should tell you about some of my achievements and prizes. Yes, I got a number of prestigious prizes, not only the ERC Advanced Grants, but the Leibniz Prize, which is the highest German award that you can get. And this year I got the Lautenschläger Prize. But I must say, when it comes to prizes, I always tell my people that is very nice to get on top of it, but somebody has to think of you. And so I think something very, very important, and that actually brought me another great prize a few years ago, the Zooming 2 prize. I was proposed by a professor in Taiwan, and I got this prize. And when I visited Taiwan and I asked him, how come that he proposed me? He said, when I was a young PhD student, you came by my poster, and I never would have expected somebody like you to come and spend so much time at a poster and encourage me. So now he's a director himself, and he proposed me for the biggest Taiwanese prize that I then got. So I do think that being generous with people, having empathy, knowing about their private life, it is somewhat a burden, but it also helps you understand why they make these daily decisions the way they make them. So I do not regret having run my lab the way I do it. So that said, actually what Carmen mentioned, I can only repeat that. I had jotted it down just not to forget it. I do think you have to be driven by your passion. And I dropped my work as a physician after I worked in a lab, after I worked in the lab in Germany, and that was both Professor Sieberg, when research became an addiction for me. It is more of an addiction than really my work. So that is, and then we come back to what I find essential. You have to take responsibility. You have to say, I can do it. You have to be assertive and you have to be confident. And I can give you several examples from my own lab, but also when I was young, that I thought, oh, it's nice to have your own group in somebody else's big department. No, this is not it. So you have to go for it. And I would like to remind you of a very important text by Virginia Woolf, who almost 100 years ago wrote this very important essay, A Room of One's Own, where she wrote, a woman needs money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. And this room of your own is not only the literal room, it is also a figurative room. So you need this space of your own and you cannot develop in somebody's shadow. That said, you have to take the responsibility and create this room for yourself. Thank you, Rohini.
Thank you, Hannah. Very insightful, very interesting. Let's now move to France with Professor Ipek Yalcin.
Thank you, Rohini and Carmen, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you also. So I'm Ipek Yalcin. I'm a research director at CNRS, and I did a pharmacy degree in Turkey. I'm originally Turkish. And then I decided to work in neuroscience and psychiatry field, and I obtained a joint doctorate fellowship from French Embassy in Turkey. And I moved to France without knowing any word in French. And then I did a PhD in between Turkey and France. And then I continued to my journey in France, and I did a postdoctorate at CNRS in Strasbourg. And then in 2010, I obtained a senior researcher position at CNRS and have started to focus on my own project, which focus on the comorbidity between chronic pain and mood disorder. And since 2018, I'm co-directing the team, Neuroanatomy, Pain and Psychopathologies, which gathers around 30%. And I'm also adjunct professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Neuroscience at University of Laval in Canada. So I have a point of view from France, Turkey, and Canada somehow. And I can just say that I think some of the gender inequality is a social gender inequality. And I think that the most of the inequality can be socially created. I can see the difference between different countries. I can compare several countries now, and I can see that how society thinks about men and women can affect the gender imbalance. And I would like to add that recently we have granted a European ITN project that I'm coordinating, which gathers many outstanding European women pain researchers. And I'm very proud of that we have a very good gender balance in this project. And I hope that this project is one of my initiatives for the gender balance in every level of scientific action. So if I return back to questions, I think I never thought that I should act like a man to succeed, at least so far. So, and I also think that we shouldn't change ourselves as a woman to fit in the existing system. We should fix the system, which has been improving in the last decade, but still far from being perfect and even being appropriate sometimes. And I think that as an action plan, firstly, we should raise the awareness for gender inequality. If I will be honest, until I became PI, my awareness about the structured or habitual inequality of men and women, I mean, gender in neuroscience was very low, because I did a faculty of pharmacy, which is an area, exceptional academic places where the majority of students and academicians are women. I had a chance to be mentored by women scientists whom I learned not only good science, but also human relationship management and other soft skills. But then the reality hit me in the face, and I realized that women researchers are underrepresented at higher levels of neuroscience. And this I realized in the second part of my career. And even though we talk more and more about inequality and it's no more taboo, I believe that we still need to raise the awareness among especially the early career researchers. And we must actively fight with inequality in freedom, rights, and opportunities. And also believe that the education is the must. The education of gender equality must include not only women. Unfortunately, today we have more women participants than men. But I believe that this education part should be also include male scientists. And some weeks ago, I was looking numbers. I was looking for numbers in different countries, and I found a study performed in France showed that some male scientists are sensitive to this issue, but some other even think that there's already too much being done for women. And surprisingly, when I checked the age, these type of comments come from younger generation, not the older generation. So I was very surprised, and I think that we need to make more this type of events that I think will be useful to actively work on all fronts and keep pushing and talk about this possibility of gender imbalance.
Great. Thank you very much, Ipek, for sharing these experiences. Excellent. We now move to Oxford with Professor Irene Tracey.
Great. Thank you, Rohini, and thanks again for the invitation. Well, good morning, afternoon, evening to everybody out there. My name is Professor Irene Tracey. I'm a pain neuroscientist, neuroimager, and I'm a Pro-Vice Chancellor here at the University of Oxford. I'm also warden, which is a fancy word for head of my old college, which is a 750-year-old, formerly quite male-dominated college, but something we're still working on here. And I've held, and I still hold, several leadership positions in science. I've directed for 10 years a brain imaging centre, and I was head of a very large clinical neurosciences department of about 700 people. And I'm currently proud to be president-elect of FENS, so I'll be trying to fill Carmen's very large shoes and Jean-Antoine's large shoes. So let me cut with the bio for time and just cut straight to what my answer is, a simple answer to the question, and that is no. But of course, it's not a simple question, as the previous discussants have already said, and so it does deserve a more nuanced answer. As Carmen mentioned, we first have to sort of define what we really mean by male traits. What are we actually referring to there, and whether these are solely the remit of men, or are they ones that we've chosen not to embrace growing up, or we were told not to embrace growing up because they were deemed not womanly, whatever, again, that means. Second, we need to understand why we think it's even necessary to adopt male behaviour to behave. Is it to be heard? Is it to be considered part of the team? Is it for fear of not earning the respect in the group and influence within what we all know is often a very male-dominated environment? And third, do we actually think it helps? And I think we can all have examples of where we've seen it spectacularly backfires. So my experience is sometimes not, again, in that regard. We wouldn't expect men to behave like women. So why should we expect ourselves to behave anything other than like ourselves? So there's a lot of talk in the UK, I don't know whether it's the case for others, I'd be interested to hear on the chat, about code switching, which is the term which really embraces all aspects of diversity, not just gender, where people feel that they need to code switch either the way they dress or the way they speak, in order to blend in, or their perceived need, that is what they have to do to blend into that environment. And it's been really interesting in the UK with radio programs and TV programs, people giving their stories about code switching and how detrimental that was in terms of, again, their own personal satisfaction about themselves and their role in societies, but also whether it really did make an impact or not. And I think also awareness at the institution where they were code switching, not even recognizing that was going on, and engage the two sides coming together to sort of understand, again, this issue about where we need to think about what's blocking that embracement of diversity. So a lot of talk about that going on. And again, I'd be really keen for people listening as to whether they think that's happening, because I think the parallels are very clear here with the question of gender in science. So obviously, as everybody has mentioned, we've got to work harder to be more accepting and tolerant of a diverse workforce and celebrate that diversity rather than react against it and homogenize it and fight against it. So that's sort of what, again, I think we've all witnessed, that we've experienced going forth. And I do feel there's this turning point, a sort of watershed moment where now this celebration of diversity and actually, you know, really embracing it properly is happening. We need help in what to do and how to do that. But again, that's sort of what I feel is happening at the moment. So easy things for me to say, identifying what the problems are. The challenge then is how do we do that, and how do we succeed, and what needs to change? I don't have the answers, but certainly, you know, being authentic about yourselves and true to yourselves. Otherwise, you're not going to be happy, and it's not going to sustain a way of living. I would note that we need to support each other better. I do think that men basically do that a lot better. They're better at networking. They're better at championing each other. They're better at raising the visibility of each other. It's not that they necessarily always don't want to do it. It's not necessarily a malignant thing. It's often a benign negligence, is the expression I use. And I think women in positions of leadership have a responsibility, you know, not only to create a more accepting culture that welcomes diversity and obviously removes barriers and celebrates success and champions women, but also identify key moments of our careers. And I'm sure we'll come across this where we have other challenges maybe hitting us more than men. There can be some subtle things we could do that could be quite small, but can be absolutely pivotal at just enabling somebody to keep going and be successful. And I think younger women, I'm really pleased to see over 50% of graduates. I think young women need to call us out when we're not doing that. They need to flag it with us, and they need to have the confidence to come forward and just say, how sorry here, you're not doing enough. So we need to help each other. It's a bi-directional thing, build that confidence in our worth, and to be ambitious, and for that not to be a dirty thing or a derogatory thing or something that, again, is, you know, to be hidden. It's okay to be ambitious. And again, that's something which I would say is a trait that if you picked one that is celebrated in men but very detrimental in women, and it'd be interesting to explore why and where that creeps in. So I think as women, we could do more in that regard. I think the Alba Network is a terrific network for facilitating that. And again, I'm really excited to learn, you know, from the panelists in this discussion what more ideas we have in that regard. But I think we're in a good place to take things forward. I also think that men need to be taking more ownership of the problem. Frankly, why should we do all the work? I'm done with it. I've done enough. We've all done enough. You know, there's a lot of panelists here that are women. We need more men to turn up to events like this. And we should be data-led. We're scientists. We love data. Data speaks to us. So let's be data-led. Let's keep presenting the data. It's the most persuasive medium we've got to make sure that this issue is not considered a 20th century issue or 21st century, that this is still a problem. This is still something we have to work on. And I think we have to just keep working on gathering that data and presenting that data so that we can make sure that people know that there is still a problem. And again, I think that's something that, again, networks, we can work together to gather that data. So that's sort of a few thoughts from me in terms of response to the questions. And obviously we'll elaborate more as we go through, but just delighted to be here, and thank you again for the invitation.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Irene. Wonderful. Just a quick comment from my side in between before we move on, and that is that I'm delighted about how many questions are coming in. I'm sure Carmen is as well. So Carmen and I are really excited about, you know, sharing these questions with the panel and discussing them. So some questions are very specific. For example, Ipek, you saw the question directed to you about the study. So maybe you can go ahead and answer those. But also to the panelists, please take a look. Maybe you already identify, you know, questions that you will enjoy answering. And then, Hannah, do you want to say something to that now, or shall we first finish the introductions?
Sorry, there was by Vera Poitman posted a quick question whether there's shared leadership. Of course, there are new models also for that. I know shared leadership where two women direct a group at the Max Planck Institute in Frankfurt, for instance, right? So of course, one can think of other models too, yeah? It can be two females, it can be, why not? Why not?
Great, thanks. Yeah, we'll come back to the questions then once we finish the introductions and the opening statements. Thank you very much. So the next person then is Marzia, Professor Marzia Malcangio from King's College in UK.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Rohini, for involving me in this exciting webinar. A bit of introduction. So I'm Marzia Malcangio, Professor of Neuropharmacology and Director of the Wilson Center for Age-Related Diseases, which is a department of the School of Neuroscience at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience at King's College, London in the UK. My academic leadership roles are diverse. For nearly sort of 3 decades, I've studied pain mechanisms to identify new analgesic targets. After my PhD, which I spent between Florence in Italy and London, I decided to remain in the UK, where I built up my academic career. I spent 2 out of 30 years in industry at Novartis in a drug discovery team. Fundamental in my career has been the award of a fellowship, similar to the ERC that have been mentioned. This was a fellowship which supported me and my lab for 5 years. I believe fellowships are really evidence for that our peers, colleagues support our research activities and plans. I've been a lab head, a PI for roughly 20 years. And in my experience, the best number of members that one can have in a group to be efficient is between 8 and 10 members of group, including PhD students and postdocs. My current work explores novel approaches to target neuropathic and arthritic pain. And my lab is interested in the involvement of macroglia in the CNS and monocytes macrophages in the periphery in mechanisms that regulate neuroimmune interactions. I am very passionate about training future scientists, and I coordinate 2 European consortia, the ITN, Innovative Training Networks, that have been mentioned before. One is called To Beat Pain and the other one Piano. Such consortia, such networks include academic and industrial partners. And say collectively, we train a total of 26 European PhD students in pain research. At the Wilson, where I'm director, I am the line manager of 24 PIs and indirectly the director of 70 postdocs and students. And I am supported by 4 professional service staff members. Okay, this is my bio. So when preparing for this meeting, so I have asked myself whether I had to act as a man to establish my career in academia. Must say I don't have a straight answer. Overall, I think I did not need to force my nature and pretend to be a different individual to what I am. Thinking back to my career from the very start, I have encountered exclusively male managers, supervisors, mentors, white males, and they have been extremely supportive. Nevertheless, I mean, I can't deny that my commitment to research has been questioned, for example, when I was a postdoc and starting a family. I can't deny that I received diminishing comments, such as that my look somehow was being the reason for my success, implying that look counted more than merit in my case. Most recently, when my directorship was announced, someone remarked that these days are good for women to take leadership roles. So perhaps that meant that I got the position because I'm a woman and not because I showed leadership qualities. You know, I don't think this small list of disappointing episodes have demotivated me whatsoever in fulfilling my ambitions. I just thought I would provide examples to remain balanced in giving my view at today's forum. And I'm open to discussion with so many of you. I sort of would like to conclude by saying that my overall experience as female scientist has been positive. I don't think that assertiveness and leadership are just men's prerogative. I think we women share these traits. And significantly, we possess emotional intelligence that shapes and strengthens our leadership styles. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Marzia. Very kind words and very wise words, I mean. Well, now let's move on to Professor Nadine Attal. So we move to Paris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind invitation to this panel. I think it's really thrilling to be here, and it's my first time I do this type of lecture, so it's really exciting, and I really thank you for inviting me. So I am Nadine Attal. I'm a professor of therapeutics and pain medicine in Paris-Saclay University in Versailles, and I'm also a hospital practitioner in Hospital Ambroise Paré in Boulogne, Assistance Publique, Hôpitaux de Paris in France, and I'm also associate director of the unit 9867 from INSERM, directed by Didier Boissera. So I'd like to give you a maybe French perspective, and also I would say a hospital clinician perspective, as well as clinician researcher perspective on this matter. So regarding my background, I graduated in neurology in 1990 from Paris Descartes University, and I also obtained my PhD in neuroscience. And then I worked in general neurology in Salpêtrière Hospital for several years as a resident. And a few years later, I joined the Pain Center of Ambroise Paré, where I started most of my current research. I was then promoted associate professor and then professor recently. And my work has essentially revolved about on translational research in pain with the development of screening questionnaires and QST and coordination of therapeutic studies or guidelines in neuropathic pain, and the development of also innovative therapeutic strategies for pain. And I have also been appointed Knight, so Chevalier de la Légion d'Honneur in 2016, and I also have received a prize from French Science Academy in 2017. So this is just to summarize my background. And so the question I think is very interesting. Should we behave as males to succeed in research? And I have heard my colleagues, and I also agree with all of them, that no, we shouldn't try to be like male, because we do have many qualities that I think are extremely interesting for doing what we are doing. But I have to say that when I started my career as a resident in Salpêtrière Hospital some time ago, most, if not all, of the big names in neurology in France were all male professors, and I would even say white male professors. So I felt it indeed extremely difficult at that time as a woman to acquire a leadership position. There were only 2 women in France who were professor of neurology at that time, some years ago, Marie-Germaine Bousser and Catherine Lubetsky. Of course, this has significantly changed for the last decade or so, for many reasons. And one of them is just very simple. It's numbers. There are more and more women now engaging in medical schools. Some of these women, although they still are a minority, have acquired higher responsibilities. They are involved in the nomination of professors themselves. So that's a good point. So, and another important issue is that society has changed. Medical university is not a fortress. It is highly influenced by the outside world. And so the fact that women may and should acquire, if they have the skills, of course, the same leadership position as men is now increasingly acknowledged, even by the lay public, of course. So more and more women now tend to become professors or head of research laboratories. There is not yet gender parity on leadership position, far from it, but it's a long process. And I believe that things are slowly moving forward. So now, I have no feeling of being discriminating anymore. This has dramatically changed from when I started my residency. I'm head of my department, and I do not feel, as I said, discriminated. So my opinion on the matter of the qualities that we need, and I've heard many of my colleagues say a few words on it. First of all, no, we don't have to behave like men. We have to behave as we are. That means that we have to be ourselves. We have the same, we may have now exactly the same scientific expertise as males. Not only we have the same, but we may have also, when we acquire high-level responsibilities, we may have maybe specific qualities. Even the results of scientific research suggest that compared to men, women have higher levels of emotional awareness, lower levels of suspiciousness or paranoia. And I think this is extremely important when dealing with social relationships and management. So I think, as has been said also previously, one major condition for professional success is being ourselves, of course, having the skills, and also, I think, be self-confidence. I think maybe that's something that students, and I know there are many students listening to us now, should really, be more self-confident about their perspectives of success and their scientific expertise. And if they become more self-confident, I do think that women have a very bright future in science in general and in medicine in particular. So thank you very much for your attention.
Great, Nadine, thank you so much. Yeah, very, very optimistic and wonderful. Great, now we go back to England with Rebecca Slater, Professor Rebecca Slater, again at Oxford.
Hello and welcome to everyone across the world. It's really exciting to be sharing my thoughts with you on this topic. So my name is Rebecca Slater and I'm a Professor of Paediatric Neuroscience and a Senior Wellcome Fellow in the Department of Paediatrics at the University of Oxford. I studied physics and neuroscience at Imperial College and UCL in London, and then I was drawn to Oxford around 10 years ago, where I'm also a professorial fellow at St. John's College. So my key research interest is in better understanding the development of pain in human infants and translating this knowledge to try to improve the treatment of pain in infancy by conducting clinical trials. I'm relatively unusual in that setting in to be leading clinical trials in a very vulnerable clinical population in neonates without a clinical background. The leadership role I'm going to tell you about today is one that I'm most excited about, which is around chairing an international neonatal consortium working group that's aiming to forge predictable regulatory pathways so that we can evaluate the safety and efficacy of analgesics in infants. And this is primarily through discussion with male colleagues, actually, from industry, regulatory agencies, academia, and some clinicians. And one of the key roles I've had there is really trying to bring these people together to form a common interest and develop a common agenda. So in answer to the key question that I want to address today is I have not had to act like a man to be successful in science. And I believe that most of my successes have really come from being true to myself and trying to be genuine. I think when I've been considered for promotion or leadership positions by my more senior colleagues, it's been my authenticity and the passion that I have for the subject that's really resounded with them and enabled them to accept and believe in me that I am the right person for these positions. I also think in many ways it's the differences in the way I do my science and my behaviour and my personality that can enable me and others to stand out as much as our similarities. And so one of the other keys here is really trying to embrace this diversity rather than hiding behind a veneer that we think might be better or more suited. Certainly scientific studies suggest authenticity is one of the key to successes here. And another factor which I think is key and been very important here is that many of my successes have been because of the work that my junior colleagues have done for me and with me. And so in order to ensure their success, the way to embrace that has been to be completely open and transparent with them and try to make them really aware of the challenges I faced, the opportunities I've had, and the successes, both in terms of the times when things work out well and times when they don't. And in doing this, then you can pass on the experiences you've had in a really immediate and genuine way. And I really resonated with one of the earlier panelists who talked about the difference with the CV compared to the key things that have actually happened in my life that have led me to take one step to the next. And I think this might be a really interesting thing to discuss because it's not always those badges of honour or indeed those prizes that people were talking about earlier that are the key metrics of success. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussions with the other panelists as this goes on.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Very illuminating. Excellent. And now we're going to make a big jump and go to a completely different culture with Professor Sushma Bhatnagar. Over to you, Sushma, in India.
Yes. Good evening, good morning, and thank you, Rohini, for inviting me on this prestigious platform. And I consider fortunate to speak on this topic. And when you gave me this topic, I think first time I must have thought about it, that do I need to behave like a man to succeed? And my answer, as my colleague says, no. My answer is simply no. I will explain this with my own experience of 59 years of age and 31 years of professional experience. So In India, born on a land where you are responsibility of your parents if you are born as a girl child, and in a family where we were 3 sisters and 1 brother. Unfortunately, losing my father in the early childhood and seeing my mother to work hard to every extent possible to take care of all of us gave me insight that there is no substitute of hard work. Working hard and sincerity has become my habit forever, and this has become habit for all my brothers and sisters. My mother used to be happy when I was becoming a doctor, but she was so strict that we were never allowed to go out of home in the evening for any parties or just to have a fun. Still, I don't remember any day that I have thought that I should behave or I should act like a man. In fact, I tell you what, keeping my emotional intelligence in female on the top and simplicity on front has helped me throughout my life. As a team leader, I am heading the team since last 21 years. I am professor and head of the department of head of 4 departments, like 1 department, but looking after 4 services: critical care, onco, anesthesia, palliative medicine, and pain since last 21 years in a premier institute of the country in Delhi, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Now, I will tell you what are the salient point I consider my team as working as a great team. First of all, I always remain simple, honest, and committed. I have confidence and keep faith on my team members. Although I experienced being a female, we have to work hard. We have to prove ourselves double the amount what probably other people are doing. But still, I keep my values on front and my team on the top. Many a times I have to prove same thing, which I needed double the amount required for many men. But I don't accept. Many a times men don't accept my views and many they don't like to follow my command. Still, I remain what I am. As a female with a sari and a bindi on my forehead, that is red dot. Those who are not knowing the bindi, what is bindi, who has a strong commitment and to make a difference by doing extraordinary things always. What is the secret of my success? Now I'll tell you by point wise. First of all, my mother, I have already told, who has taught me hard work and sincerity. And her strictness in a way has become the way I survived against all the odds. Second person in my life is my husband. I consider my husband, and I am the luckiest female of the universe of having husband, my husband Naresh. He gave me all the freedom and support to every extent possible and he became my strength forever. Third secret of my life is both the children who were gift of God. I don't know even a single day when I must have missed my work or my assignment because responsibility towards both of them. In fact, many a times I keep hearing from them, "Mummy, don't come home early because of us. Please finish your work and come." So I am the luckiest person. Fourth point, my team members. I consider my resident doctors, my fellow colleagues, and everyone who is working in my team, they are very sincere, they are very confident, and they are very, very honest to me. Since 1999, I am leading a team, and we started with 4 people, and now we have a team of 100 people. Today we have presented our grand round of 2 decades of our work in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and we were very, very proud. We work hard almost day and night, non-stop, have full confidence on each other. I think that when women are insecure and their own leadership, insecure with their own leadership quality, and they're not convinced that they can lead a team, I think they think that they have to act like a man, but I don't think that we will become unnecessarily confused. We will become slave of our own things. So please don't think that if you want to lead a team, you need to work like a man. Few more points which will keep you on the top without acting like a man, which I think I have. Rohini, you have told me that you have to praise yourself. That's why I'm praising myself. So communicate openly. I communicate openly and effectively, even in front of man or my colleagues. And I think effective communication makes a key of success, and I don't close my channel of communication. Even if there are some confrontation or difference of opinion, I keep the channel open so that I can communicate after some time. I used my time super judiciously. I am very, very time with this thing, and I use it super judiciously. I always try to remain in positive frame of mind. And if any negativity comes or enters, I find out the cause and destroy it there and that itself. I always remain what I am and never follow others so that I can be like others. I don't believe in that. I follow my routine judiciously and this really makes me really meaningful. And when I am in front of men and I want to keep my point in front of men, I keep it. I'm very, very careful when I'm in front of men and I want to make them understand what I'm saying, but I always talk with facts and figures. So most of the time I am successful. I always remain satisfied what I have and always thrive for excellence. As a clinician, when I am in front of my patient, I keep a human touch on the top. I use humanity with knowledge and compassion. So my take-home message for all my youngsters and all the audience, the simplicity and humanity is a female character, and we must not allow to go away from us at any cost. A man is also a human being. He will ultimately listen to you and follow you. He may take some time if you speak facts and with confidence, and you must always remain satisfied where you are. I am passionate about my work, and I believe when our profession and passion will meet, we are going to excel. We don't have to act like anybody. You have to be what you are. And when you act what you are, I think you are natural and you excel. Thank you very much, Rohini, for inviting me on such a prestigious platform once again.
Thank you, Sushma, for your very valuable insights. Really, really very touching, very, I think, very, very illuminating for us. Excellent. So with that, we are going to make a full circle and come back to me, and then I'm going to give over the moderation to my co-host, Carmen. I'm a neuropharmacologist, born and studied in India, and I was very happy that Sushma gave you sort of the Indian perspective. And I also had a very supportive and, sort of mom who said, you have to go on and be independent always. I obtained a PhD in the US, moved on to Germany as a postdoc, incidentally in the same lab as Hannah also trained in. And eventually I advanced to a group leader position via a nationally funded program in Germany, and then obtained a full professor position in the medical faculty of Heidelberg University in 2006, and then got promoted to being the director of the institute 3 years later. I have participated in and chaired many national and international committees in science management. Amongst other things, I'm also part of the University Council that oversees actually the work of the rector and the university leadership. I'm a keen supporter of careers of young scientists of all genders, so also to all of those of you writing now comments. I really welcome and understand your comments along these lines. So amongst those, for example, chairing the starting investigator panel of the European Research Council and other such programs, which I find are very important for our young scientists across all genders. Since the last 5 years, I've also been the chairperson of the board of directors of a foundation called the Shala Foundation, which is dedicated to supporting biomedicine and particularly advancing the careers of young scientists, which is very, very satisfying, being really able to do something concrete in this sense. More recently, I've also joined the board of directors of the Feldberg Foundation, which supports scientific exchange between the United Kingdom and Germany, which I find particularly important in these divisive times. I think we women also have the capacity of being integrated across countries. Going along several questions that are here coming, I see questions from Karen Davis, for example, on these lines. I'm also very excited to be the leading scientist of the Heidelberg Pain Consortium, which is partly hosting this. It's a large grant-funded research consortium with about 40 PIs for pain research in Germany. And as others have also mentioned, I am a wife of a professor and mom to 2 children, 2 cats, 2 ducks, and 1 dog. And it takes this whole community to keep me happy. So what would I like to say about this topic? Now, having lived through these different cultures and trained with so many outstanding scientists and mentors who actually were very different in their social and leadership styles from each other, I have learned to selectively pick the qualities that I like best from each culture, from each mentor and each environment, and for my own persona and style for dealing with situations and people in science. So I have also never embraced strongman tactics in committees. I can not pretend to be anything different than I am. So in that sense, I believe that I have very typical feminine attributes and I've never tried to play them down. And I don't think that using elbows and being sort of the tough guy, male or female, is the only way to get ahead. Although there were times when I felt that my voice was being drowned by some who shouted louder, overall, I think that the style of being receptive, considerate, relationship-oriented, content-focused, which I find very important, and integrative typically wins out. So you may lose a few battles along the way, but you will eventually win the war. My advice, therefore, would be to pick your battles really well. That means prepare well for those situations and issues that really matter to you. Stay focused on content, never divulge from content, form an informed opinion, speak up, and then see those things that really matter to you all the way through to the end, even if that means that you have to stand up to bullies, or even if that means you have to ruffle feathers and knock on the highest doors. But again, doing this on a daily basis is very tiring. And I mean, remember, we are in science because, as we all heard, we're passionate about science. So pick your battles carefully, and thereby at other times be open to also reciprocally supporting and giving to others over points that may matter more to your colleagues or even to your opponents. Try to your opponents also more than halfway through. So this would be my advice. And with this, we are going to be running another part of the polls, and then I ask Carmen, please, to take over and moderate.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Rohini, and thank you all the panelists for incredible, I think, insights, and thank you for sharing your experience and also your wisdom in this topic. And now, indeed, we have 2 questions on the poll. So, Matilde, please. No, but again, there is something there. It's maybe reflecting that we are progressing in this area, that perhaps we had some experiences, but now things are changing. And I think this is something that we want also to discuss today and felicitate and congratulate ourselves for this change that's taking place. So now we are going to start with some first questions. And I would like to start with a question that I would ask Nadine, Sushma, and Rebecca if they can answer. And it's, did you have to overcome major barriers in reaching your leadership position in science? How did you overcome them, particularly in the context of perceived feminine attributes? You can start with Nadine, perhaps?
Yes. So can you, I just didn't reach,
yeah, I can repeat.
Could you just repeat the first part of the question, please? I'm sorry.
Did you have to overcome major barriers in reaching your leadership position in science? And how did you do that?
Yeah. As I said, I had, personally, I did have some barriers when I started my residency, that's for sure. And that's also because at that time, the leaderships, particularly in neurology, I'm a neurologist by training, and I had to, I would say I had to fight with, yes, male neurologists who had all the higher positions, particularly in Salpêtrière at that time. But as I said, this was more than 20 years ago. It's not perfect, but it has indeed changed, as I said, because we have more parity in medical schools and also in science, of course. And just the fact that we have more parity doesn't mean that all the medical students will ultimately have leadership positions, but they will be more and more judged by other women. And so that means that I hope we will soon reach a position in which gender is not a problem anymore. It's, I mean, whether it's feminine or masculine or whatever, and we should go even further than that. So what's important, of course, is to have the skills, it's to have the confidence, and of course to have the education. So things are, as I said, moving forward, and I do think that now a woman engaging in medical school now and wishing to go further in research, of course, has to work very hard for it, but I don't think now, I say now, she will face any obstacles, but because she is a woman. This has in the world. I speak of France, and perhaps that's the same in Europe, but and what should probably change is, in some testimonies about India, it seems to be a little bit different in these countries, so that could be discussed together. But in France, now the position is quite clear. I don't think we are now discriminated as women for having leadership positions in INSERM in particular, in CNRS, or in to be professor in university. Not anymore. It was the case, it's not anymore, or less and less, I would say, less and less.
Thank you, Nadine. Sushma, would you like to add something?
Yes, I think the biggest barrier which I feel is our own emotions and sometimes impulsiveness and perceiving things in a different way. Otherwise, I don't think that I have found any time any barriers. Whichever time, if I have found any barrier, is my own thought process, that if I'm something I have not done completely at home, for example, if I have not done something which I need to do for my children, and I went back to hospital and working for morning to evening, I keep feeling that I've left something which I should have done. So sometimes it is a barrier, your own thought process, but as far as men, they are concerned, I think they are going to be, when this question came, then only I realized that in front of man, when you are there, you have to, if you are not with talking logic, if you are not talking facts, if you are not talking whatever you are talking with confidence, I think it will become your barrier in your going forward. So we have to be very confident and assertive. Then only we will survive as a female. This is my answer for this.
Thanks, Rebecca.
So there's no doubt I've had to overcome many barriers. I need to demonstrate that you're capable scientifically, that you're good at communicating, you're good at collaborating with junior people, senior people, and people from all over the world, and being able to embrace criticism and build on it. But I don't believe that any of that's to do with whether I was a man or a woman. I think both groups of people need to achieve all of those things and overcome those barriers in order to be successful. And my belief is that if you can really demonstrate that your science is good and you're a capable scientist, then you'll be judged for that, and not whether you're a woman or whether your hair is long or short or you're big or small. And that's just an additional feature which the scientific community has the ability to embrace. They can ignore these factors and not consider them as the primary goal if you're demonstrating that your scientific skills and all of the other broad attributes that are required to be a scientist, you can demonstrate. And those are the keys, I think, in order to take each step.
So all the answers, I think, are very positive, and I think encouraging to everyone to give it a try. Thanks, Rohini.
Just a word, I think it's possible that some women still have tendency to self-censor themselves. That means they feel, they don't have the confidence, they think that they won't be able to. And this definitely should change. And this is really something that even women themselves should work on, because they don't have anymore to self-censor themselves. It's sometimes is still the case in some conditions.
We are going to discuss a little bit more about that because there are questions related to this, whether self-esteem, self-confidence is a problem. We are going to discuss to what extent is fixing the women versus fixing the culture. But let's maybe go to the next questions by Rohini.
Yes, great. Yes, and I'd love to actually also sort of weave that in, looking at also at the big response that this particular topic is getting. So in this sense, let's ask our panelists, what concrete tips would you give for enhancing confidence, particularly at a younger age, and attaining success? in a competitive environment, particularly maybe even a hostile environment? And I'd love to weave in a question also from one of our registrants now. Did you come across microaggressions and subconscious discrimination? And how do you deal with that? So I'd love to ask Ipek, Carmen, who is the Almodovar, and Marzia to answer this. So Ipek, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we heard a lot of tips, and I will just put them together a little bit, and I will continue with the last sentence of Nadine is that, one of the tips is that never inhibit yourself. The auto-inhibition is something that we frequently do as a woman neuroscientist, especially when we need to apply for a promotion or for key decision-making bodies. We never do at the same rate as men. So the men are not really auto-inhibited. They don't ask themselves that they're good enough to apply for this position. But we ask ourselves very frequently this question. And why? Because if we go to these type of competition, if we check at least in France, there are good success rate for the women who do apply. So it means that the first thing is that really don't inhibit yourself. And another tip is that, I don't know if it's the case for you or not, but I frequently start to discuss my PhD students at the end of their PhD. They ask me, is it possible to manage a family life and science? And some of my female PhD students sometimes decided to stop because they think that it cannot be possible. But it is possible. Don't think that you can't manage family life and science together. This is something for all women. We should manage the family life and science. And it's true that women are more likely to experience career interruptions than men because of all the family circumstance. But it's coming more and more like a rule, at least in Europe, that the academic promotion or financial supports take care of interruptions into account. So for the European Commissions, they take into account that you had a maternity leave, and in France for the academic promotions, they take into consideration these leaves. So don't think that it's not something possible. I think most of the panelists here, that we have a family life and children and doing our career. So this is also one of the auto-inhibition, I believe. And another thing is that everybody said is that, and networking. It's true that it might be possible that we network less than men, but for this, I think we should support each other. We should encourage other young female scientists. And when sometimes I realize that when the chair of a session in a conference is a male, the other speakers are more male, but it becomes less and less, but it was the case some years ago. And I think we should invite the more women scientists as a woman scientist, and then it will create some more collaborations between the female scientists. And then what comes out is that the perseverance is a measure key to success in science. And I think we should believe ourselves, and it is the same for women and men, but we should believe ourselves. And once again, I think that do not try to fix yourself, believe in you, and not try to fit in a system. And I saw what is it is written on the chat by Karen Davis is that she proposed that equity is rather than equality. I think we will come there. The ideal is that everything should come out of our own merit, not our gender. So I think, but we will arrive there not at the same time in all culture. So sometimes we should also somehow positive discrimination for women, which is needed in some cultures. And at the end, I believe what she says is that the equity rather than equality at the end.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ipek. Now I'll ask I request Carmen and Marzia to weigh in. And can you also, both of you, also sort of address this question that has now come in, also comment, because what they're saying is that it appears as though we just have to believe in ourselves and just believe that it's going to happen and then it will happen. And we know that it's also not that simple. So could you please also weigh that in when you answer? Carmen, next, perhaps?
Yes, thank you, Rohini. So, yes, of course, it's not just believing of yourself, it's also of working hard and having the right support also, right, in your institution or in your faculty. So a tip for myself, how I do it is that when I face a situation that I need to take a decision, or that I imagine in a negotiation or in a problem, I normally think for myself, do I know what to do, and am I confident? And many times for me, it helps very much to discuss it with my colleagues, not only female colleagues, but also male colleagues, and ask for their opinion on how they would deal with this situation. And then I take all this information and myself, I think what fits with me and how I would feel better doing it and more confident. And this is then how I define what I do. So this is a tip that for me works well. And yeah, maybe it's also something you can try. And yeah, I think that it's not all believe in yourself and you will make it, but it's a big part of it. So the first thing that you really need to be is confident and know that this is what you want. And then find ways that you can make it. And as Rohini also said, sometimes you might lose some battles, but sometimes you also win many battles. So yeah, this is how I would indicate it, yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Carmen. We now come to Marzia. Will you weigh in, please?
Yes, of course. So confidence. Yes, I would say I'm with Rebecca on this. Confidence stems from one's own competence in that subject, and also from gaining a sort of respect and consideration from others. Competence comes with time. It can certainly be achieved, acquired, but it takes time and dedications. And once we become competent in our topic, then confidence comes automatically with it. I think also good reputation and the consideration of other colleagues is quite important, and that also requires time. And we have mentioned during this meeting how important a good network of colleagues is and how it does help. I think that in general, for sort of the most junior, I've been going through the chat, most junior female and male and scientists, I would say be proactive and making contacts. Go to meetings, attend meetings, and mix with other people. Don't stay with your own group, but mix with others. Collaborations or research projects. Of course, not all our initiatives can be successful. However, I would say from my experience, the good news is that you don't need a huge network. You just need a very good network, a small one, but good, because we need colleagues who support our progress and careers. They do that through collaborations, but also by referring our grants, by referring our papers. Of course, this sort of support is anonymous, but then happens without us knowing that it has happened in the back. So we just need to trust that our peers are actually supporting us and they want us to succeed in our careers. I think this is my message overall to today. We just need to put yourself forward and give opportunities for others to identify, to define your qualities, your drive, and your passion for research. And confidence will come as a result.
Great, thank you, Marzia. I love this mantra, confidence will come from competence. That's good to remember. Thank you. Over to Carmen now for moderation.
Thank you. And yeah, it's interesting because the reverse also happens, that confidence also induces the feeling of more competence in the individuals. So I think they both feedback slightly. We can discuss more later. Thank you, everyone. And now we have, again, questions from the poll. And Matilde, please, you can launch the next one. Okay, so this will give us, I think, a final overview of how we feel and what it's in which, I think, state of this transition that we all feel it's we're in a transition period we are currently, but yeah, still yes, and this I think makes it clear that this type of sessions are important, and networks as the Alba Network and also the Heidelberg Pain Network are important, and discussing more we can all together make progress here. So I think we have another key question that I would like to ask to Irene, Tracey, and Hannah Monyer. And this is, what can be done to change the cultural environment in science with respect to prejudice and harmful effects of perceived masculine and feminine behavioral traits? This kind of dichotomy, what would you suggest that we could do and that maybe works? Irene, would you like to start? Yeah.
Yes, sure, Carmen. Thank you. Yes. So maybe let me just preface some thoughts with just saying that my own experience, I've been very fortunate, and I've often said this, and it's often actually annoyed events like this when I've said that I've personally never felt any, really much prejudice or bias in my career, and I've been very well supported both by male and female heads of department and colleagues, and that's been a very privileged position I've subsequently learned actually throughout my career. And so it's been interesting reflecting myself how I've gone from positions of simple ignorance, I think that there's not an issue and there's not a problem, to again learning some of the challenges that maybe I've not felt and I've not been visible to. So I think one of the things in the context of, again, what we can do when you're in a position, say, of leadership to change, is to be aware of what those current issues are, because naturally you get a little bit removed from that. So I think you've got to be made aware of what the problem is and recognize that there is still a problem, and to be honest about what you don't know and open about, again, engaging in ways and getting that information there. It's not yesterday's problem. This is still an issue, and there's been some interesting questions which I've put a few answers on, again, just addressing that. The way I simply pose it is, we're having a largely, event around this gender issue with mostly women on this panel. Can you imagine if there was a male equivalent of this? There would be absolute uproar, wouldn't there? And so the way I always say it to when I was head of department or whatever, until such time as we can have a women's only dinner or a women's only event or whatever, and there's uproar in reaction, there's work still to be done. So that's the sort of mark, right? And I think we're many years away still from having an uproar for us hosting such an event. So that's our target. Reaching out, and I've said this before, the networking that men do really well, and naturally supporting each other. As I say, I'm not going to be naive and say that some of it is not deliberately promoting others maybe less worthy. And I think there is an issue around, as I've learned from younger colleagues, around the 2 standard deviation problem, that to be good, that should just be enough. Well, the data suggests that, you've got to be 2 standard deviations better than the norm just to be at the same level. So I think, being good and having your science speak and whatever is absolutely the minimum threshold, but there's more to it than just that. So I think we have to be, again, honest about what the data is telling us. And I'm always very data led. And I think, again, having that access to what actually is currently going on in terms of equivalence. And we can see that in terms of grant successes, even grant request levels, the grant successes, publication biases, it's still occurring in that. So getting that data and having that, as your weapon to affect change is what we should be doing. But supporting each other and doing that at every intersectional level, from graduates through, we've got such a wealth of knowledge around this gallery here, this Zoom gallery, and again, sharing that and creating mechanisms whereby we can just share what the experience has been. And it might not be about your science, it might be about actually your personal life and other things that you're struggling with in terms of, again, raising children or having other caring responsibilities, or just, other sorts of challenges that again goes with life's ups and downs. And again, just being there for each other, to support each other and help each other. I think, again, there's more that we could be doing there. And as a person, say, responsible for an environment, you can create, again, opportunities for that to take place. So to be mindful of that and to put in things that are relevant because you're listening right from the sort of ground up what the key issues are at the time. Knowing what those pinch points are, I've really reflected and learned so much that tiny little bits of just 3 months extra support salary or something can make just a pivotal difference, not only in just giving that person a practical thing, which is to just keep going and keep the show on the road, but it's a confidence instiller that, you know, I trust that we're going to back you, and we're going to give you that for 6 months. And again, if as a department head you can do that, and again, often I found it was the men that were coming banging at the door wanting extensions and help here before another fellowship application, etc. And the women were back. So what you had to do was get out there and find the women and tell the women, why are you not going for a professorship title? Why are you not asking me for extra support? And then putting that in to give them that, again, absolute practical support and help. But what it does is it slowly gives them, deep within their soul, confidence that you've got confidence in them, you believe in them, because it goes back to that belief and that confidence. And I think if, again, as people that have those, you know, we're very fortunate in the positions that many of us are in on this panel, that we can do these tiny little, we've got levers and we can use them, and they can be really impactful at really important times at pitch points. So again, recognizing that and using them and deploying them, but don't sit back. My experience has been we've got to get out there and find where those women are and bring them out of the cupboards and bring them out behind the lab coats and get them up and asking for things. If that's sort of not working as well and as quickly as you want, then you can go full sort of nuclear option and have initiatives. So in the UK, you know, this was done very well, there's a lot of discussion around the success of it, but we have these initiatives which basically were just money led. It was called the Athena Swan Initiative. It was a massive demand that if you do not achieve a certain change in your cultural environment, which is recognizing what your attrition points are, where is the leaky pipe, what is going on, you're just not going to get money, frankly, in terms of this big funding agency. And it was the fastest track to change that I've witnessed in what, you know, is a quite male-dominated environment. And what it did, of course, was you know, bring that change around rapidly and give confidence again to those who are nervous about it, that the sky doesn't fall down when you have a bunch of more women around. And once you've got the critical mass and you realize actually it's all right, and actually, oh, they're actually quite smart. It just brings that success breeds success, as Marzia was saying. You know, confidence builds confidence, success breeds success. So these are a few things I think that, you know, we need to be mindful of: getting the data, making sure that data is relevant, so listening to people at different intersectional points of your environment, using those levers that you've got for change. If you need to use a big nuclear button, go for it, so that you fast track it, so that you drive a cultural change. And once you've got that critical mass going, you don't go back. And I think that's, again, what I've observed is, you know, we've got, you know, more women now in positions of leadership. That then creates those role models, that creates, again, a support structure, and you're off and running, and I can't see it going back. And ask for help, I guess that's the final point, and then I'll shut up. But I often find that, you know, young people, men and women actually, young people in early career phases don't ask for help enough, and they're shy. They're shy of emailing maybe somebody who they think would be a good mentor, or just emailing somebody for support, help, or just advice. And I keep saying, you know, you will rarely find somebody who won't actually offer to take a call or a Zoom or something, or give you some advice. So just ask for help, and I mean, don't be a stalker, you know, be appropriate with it. But, you know, everybody, you know, 999 times out of 1,000, you'll find people will be very, very happy and willing and wanting to share their experiences, to guide you. So ask for help, because you need it, and we've all needed it, and we can all talk to people that were very, very pivotal at different points of our careers, and without them, you know, would have been on a different trajectory. I'm very grateful to that.
Thank you. Fabulous tips and advice. Hannah?
I would like to start with something. We have heard so many things coming back. So I just have the impression that Rohini has invited here, of course, Rohini, because you know these people, all successful people, all successful women. And of course, we have many things that we have been repeating. So I find it very, very difficult. But like Irene, to actually say something new. But like Irene, I have to say that I thought that I never encountered anything negative because I'm a woman. But once I became a chair, there were some small issues. For instance, I got an offer as a professorship to go to Switzerland, and then the Ministry of Education in Baden-Württemberg tried to keep me here. And ostensibly, they made me the best of all possible offers, what my salary is concerned, of what a professor can get in Germany. Except that when I inquired really and got the pertinent information, I realized that I did not get the best salary that a professor can get in Germany. And I was a bit shy to call up the ministry and say, so how come that you don't give me the best salary, although you promised? At the very end, I did call up. And the answer was, Professor Monyer, when you were here to negotiate, you did not make the impression as if you care for your personal salary. Now, of course, in 3 days, I had a new letter with a new offer. So, and then I got the best salary. The point is that you need to be informed what somebody in a particular position can get. And I think you have to be good with your own data and be absolutely the best. You have to be very, very good. And what I keep telling my people in the lab, and I don't make a difference whether a male or a female, I say, I don't care where we publish. I want that our paper is cited in 10 years and in 20 years. That it's the quality and the reputation. And we all know that there are labs where you believe what's coming from that lab, and there are labs where you don't believe what's coming from that lab. So I set the standard what my science is concerned. And when it comes to being a scientist as a female, I actually think that I behave in the lab as I behave outside of the lab. So I do not make a difference between males and females. I do, however, give them advice. And I have stayed in contact with most of the students and postdocs who have been in my lab years thereafter. I give them advice for their career. I have kicked people out of the lab saying, this is not the lab for you, although they have been in the lab on their own money. And they have come back. I helped them find another lab of which I believe they fit in better. So I think being a good mentor is, in addition to being an excellent scientist and being a role model, is absolutely, is very, very important. And I would like to mention 2 other points. I think Rohini and I have made this experience here in Heidelberg that one of our colleagues invited us to her place, and she invited only women. Now, I do realize that in the medical faculty, we have all these male clubs, and they meet and they discuss the next chair, and we are not part of that. And by the way, I have been invited to be in this Rotary Club as well, but I declined. I do not want to be that. I do not want to be that. But I do think that we need some female networks to propose each other for a prize, to think of our young colleagues. And I must say, I have friends who are older than I am. I have friends who are younger than I am. And I like this, you know, moving between generations. I think that's what makes our life as scientists also very, very rich. It's not only the science per se, but I also, the people we have met now, I would love to have tea with each of you, for instance, and see, you know, and learn more about what you have done personally. By the way, Irene, I looked you up when Rohini got me into this pain network here in Heidelberg. So I looked up other people, and, you know, so you research. When I see a female name, I do check, you know, where do they come from? What have they done? And last but not least, and that is probably going back and having something to do with my first career in neuroscience and child psychiatry. I do think this issue that came up today so often about confidence, that starts, of course, way earlier than, you know, the age of, you know, or at the university. And I do think that probably some of us have had very supportive families. We have heard that also coming so today. And So I think that is an issue that probably we cannot do in our profession, but that is something that maybe for those who are in political positions and can influence and have an influence in society, that has to start way earlier. That has to start in kindergarten. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And I think I will give some other tips regarding what we can do in this regard later when I will introduce the Alba Network in the last 5 to 7 minutes, something like that. So now we can have more questions. Perhaps, Rohini, you want to start with other questions?
Sure, yes. So thank you, Carmen. I've been looking, and I think at the questions, it's such a lively discussion. Thank you so much to all the participants. And I also want to thank the panelists who have been answering questions wonderfully in between, I see. So we do have several open questions. And Karen, I'm going to apologize to you, Karen Davis. You and Ana Osoria Oliveira brought up an excellent question, which is how can we join efforts across countries? What can be done more to foster exchange? But I think Carmen is going to address that at the end, where she will be giving us a wonderful perspective on the Alba Network. So if you don't mind, let's wait for that for a little bit. And if I may pick up another question, which has been asked in different forms by at least 4 or 5 people, including Miriam Müller, Malika Renz, amongst others. What they're saying is that, okay, we are now saying let's be confident, let's project confidence, and so on. But this can also be seen in panels and in certain situations as though we are being bossy, as though we are being, yes, not just assertive, but really being dominant and nasty. So that is one question. How do you deal with that? Secondly, associated with that, in fact, when we are judged harshly, often it is not by men in panels, but it is by other women, senior women. So if you'd like to handle this question, who would like to? Could you please sort of use the hand raise option amongst the panelists? I'd love to see who wants to take over. Let's have maybe 2 or 3 panelists go for it. Ipek, please.
Yeah, I think that being bossy or dominant, I think this is something that is very dependent to our character. I mean, as we all told that we are not really acting like a man to reach our aim. So we don't need to be bossy or aggressive to explain what we need. I think if we are conclusive enough and we are explaining our arguments enough, we don't need to increase our voice. I mean, as a person who never increase her voice. I mean, I'm a person that I'm very soft in the family also. So I never needed to do that. Sometimes I feel like that when I talk the other, it can be male or female scientists, try to dominate me by increasing their voice or trying to cut my sentence. It happens to me also sometimes, but I think I try to stay calm and continue to give arguments to convince my ideas instead of trying to push hard and to accept my ideas. I prefer to give more and more arguments that show that what I'm proposing might be taken into consideration. So I think we never need to push, and I can say honestly that someone tries to push me, it can be woman or man, I stop to listening somehow, so I cannot concentrate. So it makes me very mad. So I prefer people who's talking softly but continue to push in their direction. I respect and I listen, but when they become bossy, I stop listening to them. So for that reason, I never try to push the other one hard. And I realize that sometimes between women, we can also see that there is some dominant woman, and sometimes it is not man or woman, it's only the character of the person talking. But what I can say that you don't need to be bossy, you just need to argument more to make you listen the person just asking question.
Great, thank you very much, Ipek, for the advice. We have Irene and Sushma also answering the question. Irene, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I guess, you know, the challenge would be to question whether when people have experienced being told that, they feel that they've maybe communicated differently to how they would communicate being confident in a different situation, maybe on a personal level, and whether they are adopting a different, more aggressive style of just trying to get their point over. So that would be the first thing I would say, you know, to reflect on. And I think if it's still persisting and people are still experiencing this, then again, one of the things I should have mentioned in the part of sort of cultural changes is the value of training, and particularly, again, colleagues, male and female, training about, and I think Rebecca commented on this, the sort of implicit biases that we all have. And again, to be honest and aware about those implicit biases and to have those, you know, recognized and called out. Now, this is very challenging. My experience has been that people above a certain age, senior professors, often male, do not feel they need this training and do not want it. So sometimes this has to be done in a compulsory fashion. And I've witnessed it being eye-opening for them. And I've sat at subsequent committees where, having done the training, very, very distinguished senior people have called themselves out for doing the classic mansplaining, or doing the classic sort of phrasing an interesting question and everybody saying that's wonderful, and then saying, well, actually, so-and-so just asked that, but we all just ignored it because she said it, and so it wasn't heard. And it was really good, because it really proved the training makes a difference and it gets people recognizing and aware. So in these socially complex dynamics of committees where often this behavior arises and people feel they've got to adopt some styles of communication, again, all sides need to sort of be aware slightly of what they're doing there, and again, embrace some of the opportunities to learn and to reflect, and maybe just, you know, again, think about, again, how they're coming off and are they presenting, again, a different them, which isn't really who they are. The women bit, we've all been there. There is, you know, it drives me bonkers that women can be really bad supporters of women, and we just have to call it out hard and fast when we see it, and deal with it. Because if we can't support each other, guys, then, you know, honestly, you know, we're just holding it back for everybody. So that just has to be nipped in the bud when seen.
Great. Thank you, Irene. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Sushma?
So I just want to say a quick comment. I can see the time is going up and time is almost finishing. I just want to say that to lead a team, it is not necessary to become a bossy. Only thing, we have to be firm what we are saying, and we can't push everyone, because if some command is not followed, this does not mean the person is not following your commands. We have to find out the cause, that why they have not done this. So rather than becoming a bossy and doing something wrong to your team members, I think we should try to find out the cause. And second thing, I completely agree that female will have to respect a female, because most of the time this is very, very common that we find sometimes difficulties more with the females, not with the male. So this we have to be very, very careful that we have to support each other, but we cannot become a competitor many a times. So I think these are the two things which I want to share.
Thank you very much, Sushma. Wonderful. So I now hand over to Carmen. Perhaps maybe if we manage a small question or not, but more importantly, Carmen, please to give us an overview of the wonderful activities that Alba is organizing, which actually goes into, you know, concrete actions on many of the problems that we've discussed. And yes, please go ahead and conclude then the seminar. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I will introduce a little bit the Alba Network, and then I will come back so that we say goodbye all together. So let me see where I have, I think it's here. So it's a little introduction. I am aware that some of you know the network, others don't know it, and there were many questions related to how to network, and I think I would like to invite you to have a look at the website and consider joining the network. Basically, the Alba Network was constituted around 2.5 years ago by a group of colleagues, brain scientists that felt that we needed to network better. Originally, it was more focusing on gender. It was a group of women colleagues. And at that moment, we decided that it was probably much better to deal with diversity more broadly and not only tackle gender, because there are many roots that are equal, and the problem was advancing also, and important to being able to embrace all the complexity of diversity. So something that we believe within this Alba network is that diversity is a fundamental component of excellence. And I think there were also questions regarding this point, how to convince people that maybe hesitate that women could be good or that incorporating diversity is good. Well, there are many studies indeed, and there are the studies that are documented in the website of Alba, but also in other documents. And I think we are going to come back to this so that people can use these resources also in those cases where it's important to convince others that diverse teams and a diversity of environments makes better science, and also it's better in general for more healthy communities. So we think indeed that we have to tackle these inequities, and we also believe that things are changing. It's been amazing to experience the change in this problematic since we started. As I said, we constituted a steering committee in July 2018, and until now it's incredibly different, the perspective that we have in front and how people look at all these issues. I think it has a very important momentum at the moment. So among the goals that we have set for ourselves, at least in this first phase, is to promote best practices to counteract biases, and that's something that we are very actively tackling. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. Also work in recognizing outstanding contributions to science and diversity, to create role models, for example, and also to acknowledge individuals that are outstanding, and also to provide this networking and mentoring opportunities to promote careers for all members, and particularly for underrepresented groups. Indeed, today we are talking here about gender issues, and there were also questions related to intersectionality. We know that we are advancing a lot in issues related to white women, but not all women have the same, I think, progress in this field, particularly Black women and also other underrepresented groups like LGBTQI minorities face other challenges that are more difficult to tackle, and that nowadays we have very little data also and evidence-based interventions to know very well what recommendations to give there. At least I think it's good that we are advancing in some of these areas. So what have we been doing and what we are doing? First, one of the major milestones that we accomplished very recently was the establishment of the Alba Declaration for Equity and Inclusion. And this is a declaration where there are best practices that is a small document that reflects the problem with underrepresentation. It's been written by brain scientists, but of course it's relevant to all STEM fields. And it goes through different domains of issues and makes general recommendations. So it's made in purpose in a non-provocative way so that many individuals and institutions can embrace it. And recently we launched this Alba Declaration in an event in the SFN Global Connectome, and there was a lot of enthusiasm. At that time of launching it, we already had 164 or 67 organizations that endorsed the declaration as indicating that they are willing to implement many of these principles to progress in diversity and equity. There are many also other scientists that have already signed it and endorsed it, and I advise you, I'm going to repeat it at the end, to go to the website and read it, and then maybe also share it with your colleagues and then endorse it, because together I think we are stronger. All other things that we are doing is looking for data. Irene was talking a lot about data, and indeed it's something that it's difficult to have because it requires a lot of resources to do it correctly, and also to be able to cross-compare across different institutions, countries, etc. It's something where we need help, and we need perhaps to have an integrative effort to be able to acquire data from many different backgrounds. But it's very important to have data, otherwise it's difficult to know where we stand and how we can improve. Also, we are hosting networking events, as we are doing right now, webinars in specific regions, also worldwide. Also establishing awards to recognize outstanding contributions for brain scientists of underrepresented groups, highlighting success stories. We have very nice video cast and also podcast that are interviews to people from different stages of the career, different diversity backgrounds, and very interesting. I also recommend you to have a look and listen to those. Also highlighting success stories, advocacy, of course, with policymakers, funding agencies, institutions. We are about to start launching a mentoring community, and there were also several questions by some of the students probably in the audience, how to approach mentors. And I think indeed you can either join a program, you can also, as you were suggesting in these questions, write an email. Many times scientists are open to mentor you, and if one is not open, probably the second or the third one will be. So don't be shy and try to do it, or get informed. Maybe there are other programs that you can follow and join. And also collecting database. I think I already indicated that. We have a wonderful office, which we are very proud. The Alba Network has an office with Matilde Moga, who's been organizing this event with Pooja, and also Lorian in the office. We are supported by 3 big partner institutions. The Alba Network is embedded in the FENS, the Federation of European Neuroscience Societies, that it's one of the founding partners, but also IBRO, International Brain Research Organization, and Society for Neuroscience are supporting us. And also more recently, some organizations and foundations are starting to support the network, like the Brain Prize and Lundbeck Foundation. And we are collaborating with different organizations, and we are very open to other suggestions. Up to now, we have a lot of interactions with the FENS-CAFLI network and also with the Young IBRO networks. Also, we collaborate with the Women in Neuroscience, Black in Neuro, Queer in Neuro, SONA, FOUNS, FALAN, Neurofem India, Federation Wallonie Bruxelles, EBBS, CCMP, Hellenic Society for Neuroscience, World Women in Neuroscience, and so on and so forth. So the ambition of Alba, as you can see, is also to be an umbrella where different initiatives are also embraced, and we put together efforts to synergize and also to have a stronger voice and synergistic voice, and that's something that's reflected here. We are very active in the social media, and we have Twitter accounts and Facebook, etc. Please join and follow us there and register, as I said, as an Alba Network member. There are opportunities also to be a volunteer. We are launching several calls and asking people if they want to join some of the committees and working groups that we are launching. So it would be great if you register and you are part of this community, so you will be receiving information of what we are doing and also opportunities to interact. So as a final slide, please have a look at the declaration and perhaps sign it and become an Alba member. There is no fee, and it comes with many advantages. And here I would like to stop sharing, if I can. And yeah, I think for somebody living in Switzerland, I'm proud also to see that we are very much on time, and that in addition to being a very, I think, exciting meeting and webinar, there were many great ideas. I think a lot of positive comments and encouragement to everyone to go for it, and also many opportunities, also tips of how we can be more integrated networks and also synergize all together. And I think I would like very much to thank Rohini for putting together this wonderful webinar. And of course, Pooja and Matilde, as I said, but I think Rohini has been the driving person in putting together the concept, and I think it turned out to be wonderful and also very meaningful and very much needed, as it was reflected by the number of participants that we had. Thank you, everyone. All the best. Let's keep connected.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carmen. And thank you, everybody. Excellent. You can find the webinar on the website of the Alba Network as well as the Heidelberg Pain Consortium if you would like to again come back to the comments as well as the contents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Good
Bye.
luck.
Bye.
Stay well.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Rohini. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.